Welcome to a conversation about peace with the irrepressible Dr. Lynn Morel. She is a thought leader, a visionary and intuitive, and a peacemaker. Welcome, Lynn, and a very dear friend. So
Oh,
welcome, Lynn.
it's so great to be here. I can't wait to see what we talk about today in the Peace Department.
I can't wait to see what we talk about either. So why don't we just jump right in and tell me, what does peace mean for you, Lynn?
Well, peace for me is a very dynamic thing. It changes all the time. So in my 20s, peace meant one thing, like going on a date maybe. Well, I was already married by then, but you know what I mean. Now, as I've matured, this dynamic thing shifts and evolves with each circumstance. And the underlying thing that I found is that when I stop judging or expecting anything from anybody that fits my standard, I can allow peace to be present because I'm not trying to second guess them, not trying to defend myself. We mentioned earlier, it's the cessation of my againstness against what's going on in my life. And that's stopping this constant mind bully for me is when peace is present.
I love that. That's so beautiful. And you come from a martial arts background. I mean, nobody would think that to look at you all dressed and perfect in your pretty blue dress. But this woman is a martial artist.
Mm-hmm.
And how many different disciplines?
Well, I've studied 54 years. I've been a student. And the beauty of martial arts, it's really about peacemaking. And I started in judo in the 60s. I did a Japanese style in the 70s and 80s, and Taekwondo from about the 80s to 2000 and something. And then I took up Tai Chi when I blew a knee out. I was actually a third ranked fighter in the United States, all 5'5" of me at the time. And then I was trying to protect myself because I didn't feel peaceful. So what started as a 16-year-old who couldn't chew gum and walk a straight line, and a size 16 at 16, was dragged kicking and screaming to a judo class as a chaperone. And that awakened something in me called possibility. I didn't have to be a permanent bookworm. I didn't have to have the one that the bullies knocked the books and stamped the pens. I developed this ability to trust my body, my intuition, my spirit. And that's the thing that goes through all the martial arts I've studied, is peacemaking in me. Because when I'm neutral, the world stops and I have multiple options. How will I respond to this person? Will I respond in anger or a knee-jerk bully? You can't say that to me. Or will I step back and welcome them into the field of who I am as a person? Oh, that's another me. It sounds very metaphysical, but truly when we look in the mirror of another human being, we're looking at the parts we like and the parts we don't like. And that's the beginning of peace for me.
Well, absolutely. And first of all, I want to dissect what you just said because there were a lot of different parts to that I thought were very relevant. Number one, the neutrality, to be in a completely neutral place where you're not reacting to what's happening, but because you're detached from the experience, there's no emotional charge on it. There is a field of possibilities there for you. There's so many ways that you can handle that. And that, of course, brings more peace. So you started out as a bookworm. You were shy. You were a size 16. It's hard to believe, knowing you. I didn't know that about you, but you learned that there was another way of being, and you learned the tools of self-confidence and self-discipline as well as neutrality. So that's really beautiful. So what else can we learn from martial arts about peace?
Well, the style that I practice now is Aikido, and Aiki means love I in Chinese means love. In Japanese, Aikido means the art of reconciliation.
Ooh.
So I started with a judo and Aikido teacher, and now here I fast forward 53 years later, I'm now back in the circling around my roots. And what that is when something comes at us that we don't prefer, if we face it, like if we stand in the middle of a tornado and say, I dare you to come get me, you're toast.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like there are always people stronger, more smarter, craftier, more crooked, more whatever. And if we stand force to force, that's using force to force. If we
Sure.
can train ourselves in the easier times to have an attitude of gratitude, for example, one of the best antidotes when we feel unpeaceful. And neurologically, when we hold guilt and shame and guilt and shame and just againstness against ourselves, what it does is it gives us a temporary reward in our brain. And so what happens is we're like rats pressing a lever, and we get a little dose of feel good so we don't actually have to deal with what's going on. But over
Sure.
long term, and even worry, it creates up a downward spiral where we start to see life this way.
Yes.
And if we're looking this way, we can't see what's here or behind us. And we just become walking targets for those that are not peacemakers. So peace starts inside. And the way we get out of the shame or the grief or the worry is gratitude. And I can find something to be grateful for. My friend says, how do you do it? Oh, my house burned down. I know there's a blessing in here.
Yes.
Oh, my second husband died in a plane crash. I looked for the blessing. And it sounds totally antithetical, but when I came home from a business trip, I pulled in at 11 o'clock at night. The taxes were all over the table. David's car wasn't there. And I walked inside, and I have this inner connection. You could call it God, you could call it breath. I don't care what you call it. It's the same vibration of deep inner knowing and peace. And I said, God, where's David? Inside myself. And inside myself, I heard he's dead. And I just kind of collapsed in my chair, and I said, oh, I thank you even for this. I mean, that's literally what I said out loud to myself. And then I called the police, and they said, we don't give that over the phone. We'll send officers over, like, duh. But out of his passing, I grew so much. And this horrible, quote unquote, event became a transformative life experience that has allowed me to have immense compassion for people in grief. I had my own share of grief. I'm considered a grief loss expert, a trauma expert. Well, heck, it isn't my book learning. It's what I've lived through.
Oh, absolutely. I had a similar experience. It wasn't my husband, but my boyfriend died on Valentine's Day suddenly of a heart attack about 9 or 10 years ago. And my initial reaction, I was like, as it started to set in, I just realized I was at a crossroads. I had a choice. I could just succumb to the grief, or I could just recognize that here was an opportunity. And as every emotion came, I had the tools. I worked through it. I released every emotion. It came up and smacked me in the forehead. I released it. And, if you had told me at the time that there were so many gifts in this experience, like you, I wouldn't have believed them at the time. Or I might have, because
And I had to dig, I'm sure. And that's the keys of a genuine, bona fide, card-carrying peacemaker.
yes,
Knowledge, crap happens.
it does. And so many wonderful gifts came out of that experience. And it was like, wow, I can help people. I have the tools. I can help people. They don't have to be feeling all this pain and this grief, or this, the guilt or the shame or whatever it is. Here are the tools, and they work. So yeah, I know exactly.
Those that are watching this or in the middle of it, it's like, be kind. I wasn't very kind to myself. I remember I had a strep throat, because I'm very aware of my body. How could you not be doing martial arts all those years?
Sure.
And after David passed, I got a rip-roaring strep throat. And I went to the doctor at the bottom of the hill. I ran a retreat center in the country. And I said, I have a strep throat. And he goes, oh no, my dear, you really need to be on antidepressants. And David had been dead maybe 3 weeks. And I said, well, actually, no, my husband died and I'm grieving and I have a strep throat. And he goes, oh, no, 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 you take these. He wrote me a prescription. I said, I'll take the prescription. I didn't take it. I ripped it up in a million pieces. But I
Sure.
said, honor my request to do a throat swatch. And I had strep throat
Yes, of
because
course.
he didn't know, God bless him. He wanted to give me what he could to help me come to peace and balance, but he gave it from a limited
Perspective.
medicine bag perspective.
Yeah.
Whereas we as peacemakers in the process, life is about journeying and adventuring and falling down on our face and going, I should have had a V8 when we wake up. And then we fall down again and then we get up again. But not to judge him. At the time I did royally, trust me. But then I realized he was giving me the best he had to give me.
Sure.
And when we take time to say, what am I feeling? Again, I'm a brain nerd. A tidbit, a factoid you probably don't know. I had an economics scholarship out of high school of all things.
Wow.
Started pre-med, but I also ran away at 17 because I came from a very violent background and I knew I would be dead if I stayed there. So I worked my way through college. In my junior year, I started doing master's classes. I mean, I was a workaholic because then I didn't have the tools to go, what is peace? I don't know. I'm going to keep working because then I didn't have to feel the pain. But when you acknowledge just one or two words about, I'm feeling sad and lonely, the brain goes, got it, sad and lonely. And then you just sit with your sad and lonely and magic, it goes away.
Yes.
But the world doesn't teach us that it's that simple as being aware enough to say, oh, my back hurts. Huh. What was I thinking before my back started hurting?
It's very true.
I felt like my best friend stabbed me in the back. That level of metaphorical curiosity makes for massive peacemakers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when my boyfriend died,
Uh-huh.
I immediately came down with bronchitis because we hold so much pain and grief and sadness in our chest. So of course my body reacts. And it's really important to recognize that so often so many of the things that we're experiencing are because we're experiencing loss or there's some type of emotional need that needs to be expressed, and you don't quite know how to process the whole thing, so your body is there trying to help you. Our bodies love us,
and our body is our friend. You know, a lot of traditions teach that we should subjugate our body. You know, St. Francis, when on his deathbed, said, I wish I hadn't been so hard on brother body, because he used to flagellate himself and starve himself. This is a temple that
yes,
houses whatever breathes us, regardless of religion. Every living person has this in common. And when we go out to change the world, right, we see wrongs in the world. It's like Michael Jackson's song, Look at the Man and Woman in the Mirror, because what we project is our own inner wounding.
yes, absolutely.
Until we're ready to see that, MarBeth, one of my challenges, I've been coaching for like 53 years now.
Yes.
Starting as this chubby little kid teaching guys judo, which is ludicrous, in the 60s. But, my doing did it. And if I could whoop them on their butt and they didn't see it coming, I built respect for myself. That
Sure.
I could do this thing. And I was the one picked last for everything. And because my self-confidence was like less than this big. But
Sure.
when we own all of ourselves, the good, the bad, the ugly. I mean, I had a lovely, wonderful woman yesterday who works on herself so, oh my God, she's a Jedi warrioress. And if she's listening, I love you. She'll know who she is. And she goes, how can I have such hate in me and have such love in me? And the flip switches, and I want to go kill somebody because I'm so angry. And I said, well, we all have that potential. And
Yeah.
it's where you focus is what you build. So you don't get rid of hatred or againstness. You diminish it by focusing on the other. You don't ignore it, but you look at, if there's a scorpion in my suitcase, that's a little disturbance in my peace. That's a true story. I went to put on white sweatpants in Mexico without my glasses.
Oh, wow.
And there's this yellow mustard thing that I pulled out of my suitcase, and I had one leg in it. Matter of fact, the leg with the scorpion on it. And I thought, I should put my glasses on. And it was a scorpion.
Oh my gosh. I got stung by one in Haiti.
Yeah, they hurt.
Yeah, like a bee sting.
I wasn't in againstness toward the scorpion. I escorted it to its next life, frankly. I flushed because you don't belong in my suitcase. And then I forgave myself for even taking a little life like a scorpion, because it's a consciousness, but it violated me. So I took the steps necessary to protect me. In Aikido, for example, to bring it back around, when creation comes at us, we can face it. Like if I'm facing off on a bear, I'm not going to outrun it necessarily.
No.
No, but I need to say, what can I do in my consciousness to handle this situation? And I was surprised by a bear, actually. I was sleeping in the woods on Mount Shasta, and I woke up from a dream, and there was a brown bear standing over me.
Oh my gosh.
A bush and a bear, and he went, ah! And that scared it, and it ran away.
Oh my gosh.
And then I said, oh, I'm so, and this of course is talking to myself. I said, oh, Mr. Bear, I'm so sorry I scared you. Thanks for visiting me. Very crazy way to answer my own heart pounding.
Yes.
To acknowledge that a creature visited me, didn't hurt me, and was more afraid of me than I was of it. That was peacemaking in a funny sort of way.
Absolutely.
So, it's just so cool. It's just so very cool, this topic.
Oh, it is. So let's talk a little bit about judgment. What place do you find that has to do with creating disturbance?
Oh, if I judge myself, forget it. It's like judgment to me is the inner bully. We all have bullies in our head. Most people.
Oh, yes.
You should go do that. That person doesn't like you. Do you have any data to know that person doesn't like you? It's like we're not aware, we're not awake, and we're not really accurate. A friend of mine taught me that. I used to say aware, alert, and take action. But the accuracy of checking things out, we
don't have that full range of vision.
No, because
Fear has that range of vision much greater than we have. Exactly. So, if we can just step back and let ourselves be guided, that's when we find the great.
No, the bully's there.
No bullies.
It's such a big topic right now. I have been bullied internally and externally my whole life. I internalized my parental bully. I internalized the kids at school. I internalized whatever I read, all the hogwash of what people say is the current trends. And it became this litany of, you should have tried harder. You didn't work hard enough. Why didn't you finish that paper? You only got an A-. Why didn't you get an A+? Oh my God, you got a C. You're an abject failure. Like the bully, if you do good, you could have done better. If you get a C, but it was something you struggled with, that might as well be an A, because you took the actions to master what you could master. So there's the fear bully. Oh my God. That one has bullied me emotionally, physically. I've taken on people with loaded guns at my head that I knew were going to pull the trigger. That was in my prime. I was in my 30s.
Tell me about that one.
Oh, that one was interesting. I didn't have room for fear. I was staying with a French family. I was doing some private consulting with a client who was French, and she flew me over for a month in Lyon. And her husband came home after 35 years as a senior vice president, being told he was going to be laid off. And I walked into the hall in their home, and he walks in and he puts a gun at my head.
Oh my God.
And he goes, I want to end it all. And I thought, this guy's crazy. And I grabbed his arm And I took the gun away from him, all the while going, no, I want to end it. I said, no, give me the gun. So that was the first time. Now, I lived in fear after that until my flight was out. And I spent most of the time in my room. We did get him some help. He realized that he had a rather large response with his bully, his slimy, end it all now bully. Because
Sure.
he wasn't thinking. He was like this. The only thing he wanted to do was get out of pain.
Sure.
That passes. And it takes training to say, no matter what happens, I have the tools in the moment to handle it.
Well, actually, when you say that and you know it, you do.
And that's the practice part of peace.
Sure.
PFP, practice for peace. You do it in the good times, because when the rough times come, you will have a solid foundation in gratitude, in looking for the bigger picture. There's got to be something in this for me to learn. That takes such, it just neutralizes the bully.
Absolutely.
And when I work with people in trauma and I say that to them, there's nothing good here, right? I'll say, really? You know, and so once they take their blinders off and the bully shuts up, I tell it to sit down and shut up. I have for years. When I saw Lord of the Rings, where they have those ugly, whatever they call those creatures that they ride.
Yeah.
You know, I say it's chained to a fence. It has no teeth and it slobbers a lot. But it can't get you. It's just all smoke and mirrors. The bully cannot maintain dominion when we have the awareness and we accept that it's there. And then we get the data. Oh, really? You're telling me that I'm a failure and that was an awful interview that you did yesterday? Really? By what data do you say that? And that makes it go bye-bye.
Yeah. Yeah. My bully will say, but you should have said this or you should have said that. But it's all perfect. And when
They're
you
cousins.
recognize,
We're all connected. All of humanity is connected
yes,
through our inner bully cousins, but we're also connected through our inner loving. You know, when I look at the Middle East and when I look at, when I was in China, when I was in France actually for that month, there was such againstness toward Americans.
yes,
So I come from French origin. I met the most lovely people because that's what I put out. I didn't, the French are going to hate me or any of that stuff. It's like, okay, I'm in their country. What can I do to acknowledge people? I smiled.
absolutely. I had the same experience in France, and they would say, you're not American, you must be Swiss, because I spoke Creole from Haiti.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, you're not American. Yeah, we know you're Swiss.
And the same thing in Iceland. When I went to Iceland, talk about againstness. An event planner had booked me to do a talk. So I took someone with me because when I travel and do workshops, it's very helpful to have someone because, when you're in this expanded state, it's hard to remember that you need to do X, Y, and Z. So she was
Yes.
my protector. We got to France. Nobody picked me up at the airport. They were supposed to pick me up at the airport. Ironically, this is the synchronicity and the flow when you're in peace.
Yes.
One of my clients from Iceland was on the same airplane going to Iceland. And I told her what was going on. She goes, oh, I know that guy. I'll take you to his place. So I go to his place. We walk in. He goes, I called you yesterday to cancel it. I said, I was en route to Iceland yesterday. So he goes, well, it's off. I said, really? He said, well, there's only 2 people signed up. And I said, let me take a walk. I was not in peace.
I bet.
Walked around the block going, okay, there's a win here. There's got to be a win here. And then I heard this, like not heard as in heard, but I had this sense that if there's 2 people, you speak to the 2 people.
Yes.
And so I did. It turned out there were 10 people. But he had only put up one note, which was on the door of the bookstore in Reykjavik, the largest bookstore. The woman was locking up that owned it, saw that and thought, I'm going to go to that. So she came in partially through my talk. There was still a room for 200 people, but there was one table with 10 of us, right? So she says, oh, I wish somebody had written a book about this. I said, well, I did. And I handed her a copy. It was spiral bound. It was called Heaven's Helpful Hints. the subtitle, which predates Chicken Soup, was "There's God in Your Soup." And I said, here, it's a gift. So she invited me to lunch the next day. She advertised it in her store. She didn't charge me any kind of fee. I had a full workshop, and she faxed New Leaf Publishing saying she wanted to carry my book. So I had a distributor before I had a publisher. This is all because I said yes. And it got better and better and better. And so when I came back home, it's like the blinders, they wanted to come back on. And I just followed a nudge to go to a place called the Himalayan Institute, where Swami Rama ran it, because they could silkscreen spiral bindings. And when I walked in, this is the flow of peacemaking. The man who's running the printing, aspect of this institute looks at the cover of my book and says, "We never print books that the Swami doesn't write, but Divine Mother makes exceptions. Will you allow us to print your book?" Duh. So it's like that happened. And then I'm driving home, and I think, well, I really need to give them $500 for paper costs. Costs have gone up. I said, well, where am I going to get $500 right away? I drive in my driveway. Someone follows me, right? This is in the country at my retreat. And he walks up and he goes, "Ma'am, I drove by earlier. Is that trailer for sale?" That was the trailer my husband used to tow his stuff on. I said, yes. He goes, "Would $500 work?" I said, absolutely. I mean, the whole thing was because I chose peace. When we choose for giving ourselves the benefit of the doubt and other people, then the flow opens up and the synchronicity, all my needs were met. I didn't find out until, that was 1990. I didn't find out till 2006 that my book was considered a bestseller in 1990. I just didn't know.
Oh, it's wonderful.
And a publisher contacted me because he read something I wrote, and he said, "Do you have any other books in the pipeline? Have you written anything about this? I read your chapter." And I said, "No." He goes, "Well, I researched you, and your book, is a bestseller." There was no Amazon, but I told him how many copies I'd sold, and he goes, "That made you a bestseller." And I didn't have a clue. I just wanted to share the good news of the things I'd learned. And so for all of our listeners, if they have a dream, don't let the bully take them out. Because when we're at peace with ourselves, oh my God, the miracles they open up, and what are our obstacles become stepping stones to our absolute peacemaking capability.
Absolutely.
And I'm widowed. My retreat burned down. My mom died in a house fire. I got sued by the IRS. Sued by Social Security. Field audited by the IRS. This is at 4-week intervals. After my retreat burned down, my mom's house burned down before mine. And everybody would say, "You must be cursed." But the irony was, no, I was blessed because I had wanted to be of service. And I asked for it in a way that I wouldn't ask for it now. I asked it, I said, "You can have anything I don't need." Well, the little negative bully got in there. Now I say, "Oh, bring me what I need to embody peace."
There you go.
Something comes. I go, "Oh, take the blinders off, bully, go sit. Remember, you have no teeth, sit."
Yes, exactly. That's beautiful.
Okay, what's my next step to greater peace? Peace is the pivotal for everything in our life.
I agree.
Forgive yourself, forgive others. We point that little finger. Oh my goodness, these three are pointing at us.
Yes, they are.
Can you imagine what would happen if the world, with what you're doing, for example, if each one of us took a moment every day and said, peace within, peace without, peace above, peace below, peace to the right, peace to the left, peace all around?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
We come from peace. Peace is just as contagious as negativity.
Yes, it is. And I've seen such amazing results from people just taking just a few minutes a day at noon to tune into our meditation. I'm getting the feedback. People are more relaxed. There's less stress. Their jobs are turning around. One woman said that she's not flipping people off in traffic anymore. just for just 7 minutes a day. So yes, when we focus on peace, whatever we focus on is going to expand anyway. So
Exactly.
we focus on peace.
It's just so
Ta-da!
exciting. I mean, you can tell I get jazzed about peace because I wasn't always that way.
Yeah,
I didn't grow up in a peaceful environment. I grew up in a battlefield. And for all those that are struggling, a little tidbit that I got from my research is that when a fetus is in utero, the environment of the parents and what they're going through is received and noted by this little fetus,
of
who then
course.
creates effector and receptor cells that makes them a hot responder, which means they're a hair trigger, or a cool responder, which means, hey, I'm chill, man. I had a great life. I've never met one of them. But those are the two extremes. And as
Sure,
we take dominion, we can change our physiology. You can't change
absolutely.
the brain, but you can change how they express in the world. And some of the greatest non-peacemakers, you look at Amazing Grace. In a moment of grace, he realized what he did and spent the rest of his life being a peacemaker.
Yes.
Gandhi went through his thing. His grandson, I'm an acquaintance of. We were in the same workshop together, and I was able to give him my coat because he was from the South, and it was snowing in Michigan. And I was
Wow.
standing outside with this flimsy little coat, and I had heard inwardly, wear lots of sweaters. So I had so many sweaters, I gave him my coat, so we became peacemakers together.
Beautiful.
And he shared how angry he was growing up with discrimination in this little island, and how parents didn't know what to do with him, so they sent him to his grandfather. And his grandfather didn't try to make him not be angry, but when this little boy would come in and disrupt heads of state by demanding his grandfather do this, or he's going to get really, his grandfather would just wrap him in his arms and hold him while he continued, not missing a beat, talking to the British. That's peacemaking.
It's total peacemaking. That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Lynn Morel. I am just so grateful that you have joined us today. And I am so looking forward to your meditation.
Oh, and I am so honored to be with a peacemaker, MarBeth. You are so radiant, and I'm
Ah,
honored and privileged to go on and on about the joys of peace, and that it is a learnable skill. Just one.
and there's so many facets to it. So thank you so much for your brilliance. So appreciate you. Thank you all so much for joining us. Be sure to tune in to Dr. Lynn Morel's meditation. She is awesome.
Thank you.